The culture created by and inspired by the leader is such a key element to the success of any organization. Let's take the United States as an example. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, we lead, and we inspire. And just taking the United States as an example, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but over the past 4 years, it seems that we have a culture in this country where everyone's pointing fingers at everybody. There's a divisiveness. There's not a unity, as opposed to with the election of our newer president, we have, well, there may be some divisiveness, but it's not as blatant as it was, and there's also a unity of people trying to seek a common goal, a common cause together, without yelling at everybody else and saying this one's an idiot and that one's a dope and so on and so forth. You don't need that. What you need is you need a culture that you create where people want to bond together. Now, the last time we got together, we were talking about why it's so leadership is everything, and one of the things that's very critical is the culture that the leader creates and inspires. And we were going through an article by a gentleman named Jack Wilder. Big shout out to Mr. Wilder. The best way a leader can spend their time. And the first thing we talked about was it's critical to have a vision that everybody embraces. Let's pick it up from there. The next thing we want to talk about is providing feedback. Quote, criticism may not be agreeable, but it is necessary. It fulfills the same function as pain in the human body. It calls attention to an unhealthy state of things, unquote. And that's by Winston Churchill. Once again, I'm quoting Mr. Wilder's article because it's so good. Communicating with your team is one of the easiest things for leaders to avoid, especially if you're addressing a problem. It's not a fun conversation to have. It's tempting to give people a pass just this once and hope it gets better. The only problem with this logic is that it's wrong. Problems don't fix themselves. They only get worse with time. By not addressing it, you tell people the behavior's acceptable. And again, if you don't do it as the leader, no one else is going to take this on. I heard somewhere that attitudes plus behavior equals culture. Overly simplified perhaps, but it captures the basic idea very well. Feedback elevates both attitudes and behaviors. Positive feedback, which I parenthetically add should be distributed on a ratio of about 5 or 6 to 1 versus negative feedback, end of my parentheses. Positive feedback encourages people to repeat behaviors that work. Constructive discussions address problems and put people on a better course. And whenever people see you recognize their performance, attitudes will improve. Quote, give a good idea to a mediocre team and they will screw it up. Give a mediocre idea to a great team and they'll either fix it or come up with something better. If you get the team right, chances are that they'll get the ideas right, unquote. And that's from Ed Catmull. What we're talking about here is recruiting and hiring. Hiring new people onto your team can be like performing an organ transplant. You can do all the background work to see if there's a match, but you never know whether the body will ultimately accept or reject the new transplant. Sometimes smart, talented people just don't work out. In most of these cases, the problem is due to a poor cultural fit. As a leader, you need to hire people whose strengths balance the areas where you're personally weak. You need to balance diverse personalities and strengths with a solid cultural fit that will promote collaboration. The goal, and this is critical, listen to this, the goal is to have enough friction to create sparks, but not burn everything down. Let me say that again. The goal is to have enough friction to create sparks, but not burn everything down. Recruiting and hiring then becomes an active process. Who do you need to contribute to your culture? What are the critical values that they need to have? What diverse skill sets and perspectives do you need to add? As a leader, you're able to set both the standards and the direction for hiring. The makeup of your team is too important to leave that to anybody else. Quote, leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. That's a quote from President John Kennedy. We're talking about learning something new here. All of us are works in progress. In a rapidly changing world, our biggest challenge is to stay relevant and effective. A commitment to continuous learning keeps leaders knowledgeable of new trends, technologies, and practices. This builds from recognizing your own limitations. It involves staying open-minded in the face of new knowledge, actively seeking out challenging information, and being willing to change your mind in the face of new evidence. Another part is actively listening to those around you. There are few better ways to understand diverse perspectives, learn new things, and build trust than by actively listening to others. Amidst daily issues and urgencies of the moment, spending time learning something new or researching a potential innovation can seem like a frivolity. Yet, how you prioritize learning and improvement will influence your team's approach to it as well. And the quickest path to irrelevance is when companies focus on today's demands at the expense of the future. Quote, leadership is simple. Add value to people every day. Unquote. And that's a quote from Coach Mike Krzyzewski. Finding ways to add value to others. You know, on my worst days, I look back and realize that I was too focused on myself and I failed to help anybody else. On my best days, I can look back and think of how my contribution made a positive difference to someone. Great leaders have one common characteristic. They're willing to confront the problems facing their people. How much we help others, regardless of our personal successes, will always be the measure of our leadership value. Repeat. How much we help others, regardless of our personal successes, will always be the measure of our leadership value. The only way to do this is by making it a priority. The opportunities are there. They're around you every day. Take the focus off yourself. Step out of your comfort zone and find a way to help out somebody else. That, more than anything, defines a leader. Let me sum this up for you a little bit. First thing, critical for leaders, create the right culture. How? Have a vision. Share the vision, sell the dream. Everybody on the team has that vision. Everybody on the team is thinking about creating that vision. every single day. You measure the progress. Second, the feedback that you give to your people. When you don't give people feedback, then they think, well, I'm not really that important. Nobody's paying attention to me. Give people feedback. And when you dole out feedback, just as a good rule of thumb, it's a good idea to give out good feedback on a ratio of about 5 or 6 to 1 towards constructive feedback. People will accept constructive feedback if you're also giving out positive feedback. It lets people know that what they're doing is right. It gives them a pat on the back, and most importantly, it encourages them to try and do more to help to achieve the vision. Culture, vision, feedback, providing value to others. Isn't that what makes a great leader and a great place to work? It truly is. And always remember, don't ration the passion, fashion the passion. I'm Eli's dad.